Hey everyone, and welcome to the Artist Life Podcast Episode 2. On this one, I bring on DANIIL NARAEV. He's a tattooer out of Long Beach, California. He's been doing it a while. He's amazingly talented, and I'm excited to share a little bit of his story with you. If you guys have any questions for future people I bring on, go ahead and leave them in the comments down below, and that way I can start maybe asking some of those. And if there's anyone that you want to see on this podcast, go ahead and put their name down below. You never know, maybe we can bring them on. Aside from that, I really had a great time talking to him, and I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Thanks. So I'm here with DANIIL. This is my second episode of this podcast, and I'm really stoked to have him on. This is probably going to be a little bit smoother than the last one was, just because I'm learning as I go. But I do think that I'm really happy to have you on here because it's going to be nice to have such a diverse difference from the last person I had on. So you've been tattooing for how long?
10 years.
10 years.
This year.
Nice. And then when you started tattooing, you said you had a pretty proper apprenticeship, right?
Yeah, so I did the apprenticeship at the shop for a full year before I were able to, use machine and all that.
Nice. As far as the apprenticeship goes and that traditional route that you went through, do you think that for the most part it kind of made you a better tattooer, or do you think that?
So that's a good question, and I think it all depends on tattooer and the apprenticeship you do. So the apprenticeship I had was more or less traditional in the sense that I did the shop with other people, and that took a whole year before I could even tattoo. But it was different in a way that it was an apprenticeship competition. So when I came into the shop, I wanted to learn how to tattoo. I had no idea about what this whole field is, and so I just walked in there. 2 years being in the United States, looking like, Eastern European dude, and, ask him, how do you learn how to tattoo? So they gave me a little business card, and on the website, it says they had apprenticeship competition. So I guess what it was is that instead of regular apprenticeship where you go in and, apprentice under a shop or under a tattooer, we started with about 20 people who came to the first meeting.
I've never heard of this.
And eventually a lot of them, ended up quitting and ended up not sticking with, because it was 1 year of just slaving yourself to the shop. And, it ended up being with 3 or 4 people who finished the apprenticeship and ended up tattooing. So
how long would you say the apprenticeship was before they were at a point where you could start taking on clients?
So for me, it was precisely, I think, a year or 11 months or something like that, where I started tattooing clients for free. And before that, I tattooed a few grapefruits.
But what was the point, time-wise, before you actually started having clients that were paying you and you were doing walk-ins?
It was a year. Yeah, exactly a year. And it was a year and a couple more weeks for me because I've messed up a few things. And so I was punished not be able to take on actual clients for 2 more weeks. So for me, the official date would be February 14th, which is ironically Valentine's Day.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Yeah.
So I guess it's not ironical; it's just interesting.
So you're tattooing now in, where is it?
San Pedro. So I'm tattooing in San Pedro at a private studio close to Long Beach, California.
Nice. And you said that how long were you there for? Where you started with your apprenticeship? Did you stay there after that, or?
Where I am right now?
No, where you finished your apprenticeship.
Oh, so where I finished my apprenticeship, I ended up tattooing there for maybe 5 years. So, or 4 years. I can't quite remember right now, but I did a year of apprenticeship, and then I worked there I think it was 4 years for the same shop. The shop called Truth and Triumph. It's located in Dayton, Ohio, and so at the time they had 3 different locations, and so I worked in 2 of them in a period of 4 years, and until I realized that I want to travel a little bit and maybe I wanted to move. And so I worked there all the way up until I moved out from Dayton, Ohio, and came here to California. I
think the reason I jumped straight into that question is because my friend Phoenix, he just did an interview, the Good Time Charlie one. I don't know if you saw him post it, but one of the questions that he asked Good Time Charlie was, do you think that an apprenticeship is essential nowadays? Do you think that they are necessary or whatever?
That's a good question.
It was a great question. He actually said no. And I was actually I'm gonna do another video on my opinion on it and post it to my channel. But
the feeling I had is kind of mixed because like I do think an apprenticeship is the right way to go about it.
Right.
The hard part is that not all apprenticeships are perfect.
Yeah.
You know, like sometimes the mentors that you have
Mhm.
don't set you up for success, and sometimes
Yeah.
you know, you're rushed. Sometimes people use you too much.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that scares people away from apprenticeships. But I think the true like concept of a solid apprenticeship with someone that's, you know, making you earn it,
Mm.
and at the same time giving you quality along the way, I think that that's so much more valuable than taking a class or a seminar or, you know, God forbid, a tattoo school or something like that. Um, I'm not big on that concept of like, you know, schooling for tattooing,
Mhm.
but I understand people's frustrations on it. But I do think that maybe you can relate that having that traditional apprenticeship, it gives you a certain amount of like respect for the culture
Right.
that you don't get if you
do.
just walk
Yeah.
into it.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of hard because like
Yeah.
you want to have people earn it, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that
It is a humbling experience for
Yeah.
sure.
So do you think that it's necessary for someone now to have an apprenticeship?
Um, you know, in the sense of getting to know the industry and getting to know things deeper, I think so. From a point of view, if you just want to learn how to tattoo, maybe you don't have to, but because I did it, I think that would be the proper way.
Um, yeah,
I'd say so.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think I agree. I think it's the appreciation of for the
Yeah.
industry. I think the other side of it is just like when you did your apprenticeship, you were tattooing in a year, but that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that was when you stopped learning. Like that was like
Right.
the beginning of your
Yeah.
learning, you know. And
Yeah.
people don't realize that is getting to a point where you can start working on skin is just the beginning.
Right.
Like that doesn't mean you've finished
Yeah.
and you're a tattooer.
Yeah.
Like that's when you now have to see if you can make it
Yeah.
in the industry.
Yeah, you just passing the first line to allow you to touch people's skin when you
Yeah.
doing your apprenticeship.
In that beginning process of your apprenticeship, what was the thing that kind of resonated with you the most as far as like, did you have a moment, like an aha moment where everything just started clicking?
Um, I think maybe there was quite a few of those aha moments
Yeah.
in the apprenticeship, and you know, thinking back about it, just like realizing how helpful it was, and how helpful it was to work with other tattooers who knew what to do and who
Yeah.
can give me good tips on things to help me, you know, get to the aha moment
Mhm.
where it would take me a lot longer to get there on my own and would get me to mess up a lot more tattoos before I got there.
Yeah, I think that's a big plus of like, you know, staying somewhere where you
Yeah.
started because I think they're more accepting to help you
Oh,
along the way.
yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Now, you said that you started in Dayton. Where was it?
Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton, Ohio. Have you been, because you're from Russia, right?
Right.
Have you been back to Russia since you started tattooing?
So I have actually. I've been there twice last year, and the last time I was there was in February. So
Did you tattoo while you were out there?
I did not. Strictly came there to visit family and friends, and just how long of a flight and just how far it's out there. It didn't make too much sense for me trying to promote my work and everything, and other economical factors. Just it wouldn't be too beneficial for me to do so. Maybe if I'm constantly going there, like once, twice a year, it would make sense for me to start building clientele there. But for that time being, for like being there just for 2 weeks, it wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I guess because you had been gone for how long before you went back?
Like 11 years.
So I mean, it's like why go back and work at the same
Yeah,
time? Right?
exactly. Yeah, why go back and work? Yeah.
But now, is it plans that you have to start going over there more often?
So, because of the current political and situation with Russia and Ukraine war, it probably will be a lot harder to go there. I don't think I'm planning on working there, period. But I'm definitely planning on visiting my family and friends in there, in the future.
Got it. That's good. And I think the other interesting part is like the artists that you normally probably go visit are actually moving over here.
Yeah,
They're all moving over here.
That is a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought about that. I used to do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and
Okay.
like the one thing is like everyone wanted to go to Brazil to get the purest like form of it, and then
now they're all here.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like-
Same. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of the same thing. Awesome. When you did start tattooing, like you said, you had several of those like aha moments. Was there anything that really was frustrating to you to learn? Like, was there something that you just like struggled with for a long time?
Well, I think technical application was, in the beginning,
Mhm.
for sure was like the most struggling thing. Is
Just
to
overall,
just figuring
or-
out how to
yeah.
do it on the skin,
Yeah.
but it helped, like being next to people who would tell me that, hey, your needle is probably sticking out too much, or you forgot to stretch the skin here, or the tube is too clogged. So like looking back and trying to think what was the most challenging was, I think, was just getting hours under the belt, and I think I did a pretty good job of constantly staying busy and constantly practicing and doing basic tattoos and simple line work and like simple shading and stuff like that to where the quantity eventually overgrew in the quality.
Yeah, I think that was my problem, is I definitely like didn't get to do as many, like I was telling you earlier. When I started, I was on my own, so like I think a big thing that I could have had more that I could have done, but I think a lot of it was getting things and then learning from it. So sometimes even like letting a tattoo heal, because I didn't have the mentors around me at first, but yeah, that was something that I struggled with. It was more so like trusting myself.
Right.
I think that was something maybe I trust, or trusting myself to do harder stuff was probably something that I struggled with the most. But yeah, that's great. Now you've been tattooing over 10 years. We're both over 10 years tattooing. It's pretty interesting what transitions have happened in the industry since then. You know what I mean? Like I'm sure when you started, especially in Ohio, it was similar to where I started, where it was like a lot of salty, like traditional shops. No one really wanted to teach anyone. Information was kept close, and it was a lot rougher of a crowd. I think it was nice for me to be in that moment, because I think we both came in somewhere around the transitioning point of where like true, not that tattooers weren't artists, but people that were artists outside of tattooing started to join the industry. And there was a mixing of generations around there, where you had the old people that were phasing out and the new people that were coming in but learning underneath them. So I think coming in at that time was nice, because I got to experience that traditional value, but I didn't get drowned in it to where I was like maybe fighting change. Do you think that you kind of went through the same experience as far as like seeing the industry go from more like hard and
it felt like for like coming into tattooing in about 10-12 years ago, it was that us being stuck between the old ways and the new ways coming with marketing and Instagram and all the artists joining in and trying to learn how to tattoo. So it was interesting. It was interesting mix being stuck in between, especially being in an older, more like old schooler shop, where you can see kind of like both sides, like the old school tattooers and us newer tattooers coming in. So
and so I mean, I guess speaking about that, like, since we saw that initial transition when we started, we're kind of now in the middle of the same transition, that's happening lately, like where it's like we are the old generation now. And I can't remember where I was at, but someone's like, "Oh man, like, what's up, OG?" Like they called me an OG.
Like, oh, that's crazy.
And I'm like, and then I thought about it. I was like, damn, I've been doing this for like over 12 years now. Like, that's kind of where we're at, and we're in this place where things are changing. Do you think a lot of the stuff that's coming into the industry is helping it, or do you think that it's more just a phase?
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question. I think just like with the technology, new technology is coming in and it helps us in many ways. And at the same time, it brings a lot of like side effects of like negative side effects that could affect our previous way of living. And so the same with the tattooing, like definitely a new blood, a new energy brings like new outlook on tattooing and what it can do and what it could be. And at the same time, they come without the background and knowledge and like maybe like respect for things that was done before them to get them to the level where they are. So I think both, but I also want to say I'm excited and I'm stoked to see the industry change, and I think it leads for progress and growth in general.
Yeah, I think it's really well put, because I mean, like that new blood is what constantly challenges, the continual growth and stuff like that. No, that's great. For me in the industry, like, I've had highs and lows. Like you have the moment when you're working, fresh and you're excited, and then you have the times where you get burnt out because you're working so hard, and then you take time off, and then you realize you're getting behind, and there's constantly a struggle that I deal with, which like getting that work-life balance mix.
Right.
And it's easy for me now to tell people like, hey, you need to take more time for yourself. You need to work out. You need to do this. But I'm in the position where I can take that rest a little bit more, where, like admitting that work that I need to put in was like necessary is important just the same. How do you think that you find a balance between the work that you've put in over the years and now trying to, find a more, I'm assuming like social balance and life balance, right?
Yeah. Interesting that you've mentioned that, because that's quite literally what I've been thinking of as of recently. For first 9 years or whatever, it's been so much focus on just tattooing, and seeing how disbalancing it was and how it affected my body and my mental state, and just my life in general. Just now realizing that, just like you said, I don't have to put as much work anymore, but it's nice and helpful to find that balance in life, and take care of your body, and take care of your mind, and go with that energy, and trying to move with that, rather than just putting everything in just tattooing.
Yeah. So what steps are you taking to try to make those efforts?
Well, acknowledging,
That's a huge part.
Huge to acknowledge where your energy goes, and maybe like realizing where it should go, and realizing what things that makes you happy. Realize that you are a person, you have family, you have friends, you need to take rest, you need to have hobbies, and realizing all those fields that are important to you, that makes you happy, and trying to put a little bit of energy in there if you see those fields are being ignored for a while. And
which one do you think is being ignored the most by you?
So quite a few, actually. Hobbies. I've ignored hobbies for a long time. I've started getting back into painting and just like making things with my hands. I really enjoy doing that. My personal life, I've never gave it as much attention and energy as I do right now. My physical health, for 7-8 years, I was just ignoring my body, and drinking and eating whatever, like maybe family and time off. What you mentioned, that was important, really important, to have a proper time off to regain energy and to come into tune with a new positive and
just like rejuvenated mind.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's good. Talking about like getting burnt out and things like that.
Yeah.
Did you have like a period in your career where not you so much got burnt out, but maybe you questioned whether or not you needed to be in this career any longer, or questioned whether or not you should be doing something else with yourself?
Oh, you have a lot of good questions. For a period of a time, there were weeks, a month where I worked nonstop, and like definitely tattooing became more of a job, where I would just go in there and put work hours in, and doing it for money, so to say, because that's, you just getting paid, just putting a lot of workload, and so I think I've questioned that after a while. You going down the path and realizing that this it happened as a hobby, it happened as something that give you joy, and it turned into work. And I think so. I've had a few of those ones actually recently. Recently realizing what is that I'm doing, and what is that I would like to do with my tattooing. And so I think I'm still looking deeper into that, and trying to regain that vision again.
Just kind of really cement your purpose, kind of.
Yeah. Well, for now, it feels like a train that's going. It's already going 100 miles an hour, and like maybe like deviating like the direction where it's going at this point.
Got it. So for me, I've kind of struggled a lot with that purpose. You know what I mean? I think the hard part is, we were talking earlier about stigmas in tattooing, and one of the stigmas is like taking time away from tattooing is a stigma. It's like you must not care about it as much, or you must not be excited, and it's like I spoke about this in the last one, but it's like the complete opposite. The more time I take off for myself, the more I'm excited to work, because it's like that's what I was working for when I first started. The purpose wasn't just work. And I think I'm agreeing with what you're saying as far as like still trying to find that exact goal, and trying not to slow down that train along the way, because you do slow it down and then you fall behind, and then you got to haul ass, and then you get burnt out because you're trying to haul ass to catch back up. So it's like it's a never-ending process. But if there was a moment that you've had that now did the opposite for you, where you were like a day or a time or an experience, or even being around another artist or something, was there ever a moment where you were just like, this is why I'm doing this, like this is why I love this?
So recently I started noticing things that like really give me joy and that really make me happy into doing. And I think currently I'm in a stage where the process itself of tattooing things that I like doing, just being in there, would kind of fulfills me a little bit. And so I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, it does. It makes sense.
I think in general I like doing things with my hands, and so like tattooing was that something that made me feel more full because I'm creating something with my hands and at the same time helping people in a sort, and I'm able to make a living from this. So like in general, I'm pretty happy with choice of career and what it allows us to do, and I think we all blessed to do that and the freedom that tattooing gives us. So
yeah, super blessed.
Yeah,
amazingly blessed. For me, I do these seminars. I used to do them a lot pre-COVID. Not a lot, but like maybe 2 or 3 times a year I used to do them. They'd fill up super fast. And it was great because I get to have people here, and like that's one of the things that gets me excited is like helping other people that want to learn and like, man, that pumps me up for like the whole month after that. I'm just like excited to work, and like it's just nice to be able to hand down that knowledge in a way that I'm actually like contributing back. And so that was one of the things that I posted a video of. I did a tattoo on the top of Mount Whitney, and it was just a little tattoo on the back of my friend's ear, and it was the numbers of the elevation, and like the whole thing wasn't meant to be it wasn't meant to be for Instagram in the sense of like I'm doing this tattoo for tattoo clout. It was more to commemorate the trip because Mount Whitney is a big hike. It's one of the highest point in the continental North America, I think. I remember when I posted that video, there was this comment from someone that said, I guess it was on Bishop's page because they reposted it, and the comment said something to the extent of like, "Oh, this is what our industry has become." And they're like criticizing that I posted the video because they thought it was for
hype.
Yeah, hype. But then that made me think. I went to that person's page, and like first of all, they're a tattooer, and their page was on private. Didn't have much of a following. To me, that just means you're not proud of your work that much. But that made me think about that contributing to the industry, because when people say our industry, it's easy to be a tattooer and say that you're part of it. But how many people are actually contributing to it is different, So to me, being able to do these seminars, I feel like is giving me that ability to contribute back into it. And even like what we're doing now, I think this is great.
Absolutely.
Is there anything that you plan on doing or would like to do to try to contribute back to the industry, or maybe you are doing already?
It is. It is. all of your questions are always so good. I think for me, and sounds like for you, and probably for a lot of men, it feels good to be giving back to the world, and like to be giving back to the community that you grew into. And so I think passing along the knowledge and in a way transfer of energy is something that you gained before from your previous mentors, and now it's your time to pass along, is a very fulfilling thing to do. And I would love to give back to community, and in the sense of teaching and showing the ways. And I think a lot of tattooers struggling with that concept of what's it called? Imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome.
Funny,
you're not thinking that at some point you have something to teach you, and I think a lot of it also comes from the stigma of old ways of tattooers who kept the knowledge private. And you only have access to it if you became an apprentice, and that was like a very rare occasion, to where now is industry is growing and learning happens in many other different forms than just our original apprenticeship. So I would love to, absolutely.
Do you have any ideas of what you would do? Like, would you try to give back knowledge, or would you try to like some people are creating products, some people are doing things like I saw someone created an app for the iPad that literally will make a stencil for you. Like, it'll break down the photo into a stencil. I forgot who that was. I think it was London Reese, maybe. But yeah, is there anything that you have had in mind that you're like, I would like to do?
I think I know which app you're talking about. Maybe it's something for me to figure out. Obviously, one of the most simple things you're thinking about is communication, and like talking back to your following, because it's not just clients now, it's also other tattooers, and maybe picking up certain conversations that have not been brought up or have been quieted, and in the sense of showing what are you doing, like in the seminars, showing how to do things and trying to get people transfer some knowledge would probably be one of the first thing that comes to mind. I would love to come out with something maybe a little bit, don't want to, how do you say it right? Not meaningful, but how you said, maybe in more original way, to maybe expand that, expand a little bit how you can share the knowledge,
Yeah, I think even just what we were talking about earlier about you wanting to get more into like video stuff.
Yeah,
like, I think, like you said, you're still kind of figuring some of this out. But for me, it all just kind of came together slowly. You know what I mean? One more piece was added to the puzzle, and then eventually I saw the picture.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
So, yeah, I'm sure that's kind of where that's going. So when it comes to just in general where you're at now in your career, would you do anything different if you can go back?
Well,
because it's easy for us to be like, I'm proud of the experiences I have because it made me who I am, but that doesn't mean we can always have done something different that potentially could have made the situations better. Is there any regrets that you have in your career?
Well, I always wish I would done more art through through my whole career. I would created more art outside of tattooing, so that maybe brings back to the balance. I would say expand further than just tattooing. So I really like people. I really like to get to know people, and I've recently discovered that I do like psychology in a way, and tattooing seems like something that is almost like a therapy for people, and so maybe if I would have realized that sooner, and I could have given back more to people, to my clients, and maybe to my following through speaking up more, and talking to them. I think that maybe
that's a really good point, actually. So that's a really good point, because I don't think we realize, and this is going to sound to me, because I struggle with imposter syndrome horribly. Like, I struggle with it so bad. I just always don't give myself credit, and I feel like I'm just living in a weird situation sometimes. And one of the realizations I had recently was the last podcast I did with Angel. I think it was like the week that I posted the video. There was people that were like posting it or like tagging it or whatever. But one story that stood out, and it didn't stand out at first, but the guy tagged me and Angel in it, and it was basically a story of him, and he had an easel in front of his couch, and it was about to start painting, and he had the podcast on the TV. He was like, I'm going to sit down and paint. And at first I was like, oh, cool. And I liked the story, and then moved on. And then I think Angel reposted his story because he was also tagged in it. And when Angel reposted it, that was like the second time I had eyes on it. And when I had the second, time looking at it, it made me realize, like, wow, this person is actually like watching something I put out there and taking it in a way that maybe I don't realize people are appreciating it. So that was like a humbling moment for me. And at the same time, it was something that I was really proud about, because it was like, I remember being in that position. I remember like painting in front of my TV and like watching. I have like the DVDs. I have like Nico's DVD. I have like Bob Tyrell's DVD. I have. I used to buy seminars, or I went to one seminar in Massachusetts, and I rewatched the live feed later on, and to see someone sitting down and watching something that I made and view me as an artist that they look up to, I think that was like a really big hit to me. Like, wow, like that's awesome.
You're inspiring somebody to do better.
Have you found that you've like have had similar situations?
Well, probably not, because I haven't really had anything out there that could be shared and viewed like that in public. I think I have had those moments more in a private sense with a person to person that more or less I know, and like more or less like looked up to me, and I had a chance to know them, like to speak to them and share my story and such. And yeah, so definitely, maybe more in a personal space,
Yeah.
with other tattooers, other younger tattooers coming up and asking questions and trying to figure things out, and so on and so forth. And, hearing me speak and just seeing the fire in their eyes, like lighting up as, we talking. So,
Yeah. I don't think I've had that actually. Like
oh,
now that I think of it, like yeah, like I've tattooed
yeah,
other tattooers,
yeah,
but they're friends, like
yeah.
but I don't think I've tattooed that many clients like on
Hmm.
a regular basis that are also tattooers.
Yeah. So, neither have I.
Okay.
I, what I've mentioned is that I've started tattooing out of Dayton, Ohio, and
Uh-huh.
like, yeah, came back there a few times, and there was, I always go back to the same shop
Yeah.
to do
Oh,
the
you
guest
still
spot
go
while
back
I'm there.
now? Yeah.
Like not as often, but I have,
Got it.
So in the last 5 years, I've been there like two, maybe like three times, and the shop always have new guys coming in, and so like it was like really humbling and inspiring to see younger generation come and like being interested in like what I'm doing and how I got there. So there was moments like that,
Got it.
and so also see myself in them, because that was me at one point,
Yep.
just asking a million questions and trying to figure this thing out,
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important, is asking
Yeah.
questions. People don't do it
Oh,
enough.
yeah.
Yeah, I tell
Yeah.
that to when I do my seminars. That's one of the biggest things I
Yeah.
tell them is like, if you're here, you paid money, ask questions.
Yeah.
When I met Franco, the first time was at one of the seminars that he did with Nico. It was like
Mhm.
2015, and it was me. I think like I don't remember 7 other people, but
Mhm.
like I just did not stop asking questions to the
Yeah,
point where it
that's
was like
good.
yeah, like everyone like was like it was just funny because they would ask like, does anyone have any questions, and everyone would
Mhm.
stay quiet.
Mm.
And then I'd ask a question and he'd answer it and everyone
Mhm.
would write it down. So it's
Mhm.
like everyone had
Yeah.
questions, they just were too
Yeah.
embarrassed to ask it, you know?
Yeah, we'll see how that turned out, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I think that's, a point is like it really is important to be inquisitive when you're trying to
Yeah.
get good at anything, I imagine. But now with where you're at, you're in a private studio, and you've had that studio for how long now?
I've been there a little bit over a year.
Over a year. And then is it just you there?
Yeah, just me.
Okay. Do you ever feel like maybe being in that situation is
Mhm.
limiting your progression?
Um, I, I think maybe it could at some point. I don't think currently it is. So I worked in big shops basically since I started tuning for 9 years or so, and so um, I've gained a lot from working with other people, and it was absolutely amazing experience.
Yeah.
At this point of my career, I think having a private studio just gives a little bit of a peace of mind and quiet and a chance to focus on the client and on the tattoo, and especially with the how long for me it takes to tattoo. I need to be fully focused. So like being on my own, I don't think it hurts right now, and also I don't think it hurts to do a little bit of a traveling and
Yeah.
doing guest spots. How you mentioned
Yeah.
guest spotting at the big shop is a very cool thing, because you can pick everyone's brains up and whatnot, and then coming back and planning into your work and into your studio. So
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I'm in the same situation. I have a
yeah,
private studio. I did hire someone, and I'm hiring
yeah.
more people now, but that was always a fear of mine,
Mhm.
and I don't think that's happened, but I do think that I'm conscious of it a lot, you know.
Mhm.
But I think the other side of it is like, yeah, I need to get myself out there traveling more.
Yeah.
So now that things are
For sure.
a little more relaxed now, like that's kind of the goal, is like travel more, guest spot, do things like
Mhm.
that. But yeah, so for me also kind of having my private studio was allowing myself to withdraw to an environment that I can control, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like I had control of the music, the
Mhm.
schedule,
Yeah.
everything. And I think a lot of that at some point might have come from just wanting to pull away from the opposite situation,
Mhm.
because maybe
Exactly.
the opposite situation,
Yeah.
at some point I think it's not even that situation is like not ideal. At some point it kind of like it leaves a sour taste in your mouth in some
Yeah.
people's lives. You know what I mean? Like sometimes like being in those situations just make you a sour person, and that's why you
Mhm.
withdraw. Has there been any low points in your career where you're just like really needing to withdraw from
Yeah.
everyone? Have you had
Yeah.
anything like that?
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, work in a big shop could turn like that, because you do work with a lot of personalities. You do work with a lot of artists who us have
Yeah.
egos,
Yeah.
you know,
Huge
and so
egos.
huge egos, and other clients and stuff, and so, and then you have your personal life, and you know, other things happen in life, so it could be very overwhelming, and I definitely find myself in those situations quite a few times.
Yeah.
And I guess I didn't realize what they were at the time, and I do now when I work by myself, and seeing those moments don't come up as much because, how you said, you control the environment,
Yeah.
and you can get yourself to the right mind space and, you know, feel comfortable.
Yeah. With that being said, like, you know, that you said you've had experiences like that. How, like, in your career, because you've been doing this for 10 years, when was it that you probably hit that first wall of like, I need to get out of this situation? You don't have to name any shops, but like,
Right.
you know, how far into your career where you're like, because I've had it a couple times where it was pretty gnarly, and I was just like, I needed to like,
and it seems like when you work in just like one space for like 2-3 years, that you probably start kind of hitting the wall where you just need to maybe change the environment a little bit for you to refreshen up. Maybe you get a little too staggered in one spot, and you know, I think for me it's maybe like every like 3-4 years. You know,
it's just
you
time
just
to
hit
go.
the wall. You're
Yeah.
like, you know, there's something here that's, you know, doesn't allow the progress, and you know, and I'm not mentioning something there as a shop, but just somewhere where I put myself in, like the, you know, like being stuck somewhere, and so I think that's it for me.
I think there's been places where it wasn't even that it was a bad situation. I just knew I didn't belong. You know what I mean? And I'll always remember this because earlier we were talking about, you know, when I used to work with Norm, and I was fortunate enough to work with Norm, and I'm fortunate enough to work with Nico. And I said this in the last podcast, are like some of the hardest working people I've ever met. But I'm also like a very quiet to myself person, and at least like when I work, I like to focus on work. And it was a blessing to be able to work at Norm's shop and have that experience. Like that's something I would never want to take back from that. But I did leave Norm's shop to go, you know, to Nico's shop. And I think by the time I left, everyone kind of knew it was coming because I just didn't feel, you know, comfortable. But and not that they made me uncomfortable. I just wanted like a quieter space is all. It was, you know, they're amazing. But I'll always remember Norm had a sign on there somewhere in the shop. I don't remember where it was. It might have been over the machine shop, but it said, if you don't belong, don't be long.
Right.
And I feel like that just kind of like ingrained itself in me, and not like in a negative way. It actually was in a very positive way, where it was like, I realized if I'm not somewhere that's conducive to like a good environment or ideal environment for me, like maybe just, you know, like you said, you know, after a certain amount of time, but, and that wasn't so much the problem there, but I did see that in other places, like where I'm just like, I don't belong here. So it's like more of an awareness, you know, and sometimes being in these situations, like they're great opportunities and you feel like you should acclimate to it or be more accepting of it. But then what that does to you, I think, you know, post, you know, working there can take a lot out of you. You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I was fortunate to work there. Norm was an amazing person, and I definitely would have done the same thing all over again. Yeah. But there are other places I've worked and I'm like, I should have left sooner. You know, so in the industry that you've been in for over 10 years, I mean, that's really your life, right? Like tattooing has been your life. Like there's, it's hard to even think of
penetrated through right?
I can't. I can't imagine like it being anything else to me. You know what I mean? Like tattooing is just my life. I'm never not going to be a tattoo artist. Yeah, I might do different things, have different business ventures, but I'm never not going to be a tattoo artist. The thing that I'm curious is, and I asked this to Charlie too, or Phoenix asked it for me to Charlie in his interview, was in the amount of time that you've been in the tattoo industry and everything that you've been exposed to, what have you taken from the tattoo, just being in the tattoo industry experience, and that you've noticed it's carried over to your day-to-day life? Like what experiences have you had that have just completely maybe changed you from tattooing that you now see that you carry with you every day?
Oh, that's deep questions. You know, maybe it's the realization that you know, every contact we have is a collaboration. You know, it's a relationship in a way, and so the quality of your life, of your work, of tattooing, of working with clients and coworkers would you know, highly depend on a quality of your relationship. And so probably that, you know, realizing
that's really good,
that everything we have here is a relationship, and start changing that, and your life start, you know, adjusting to the better. And
well, it's funny because earlier we were talking about, like, you asked me like why I do this or what started me doing this, or, you know, like the videos and the podcast and stuff. And a lot of the things that I do in life, they don't really have a reason. Like it just kind of happens, you know what I mean? Like I just find myself, I mean, starting tattooing wasn't something, I mean, I knew I wanted to. Sorry. I knew I wanted to, but getting to the point where I'm actually tattooing, there wasn't one singular moment. It was a lot of little moments that kind of kept leading up to me being in this situation, you know? And I think it was serendipitous. I think it was meant to happen. You know, I do truly believe that. But for me, even just being here right now, and we're talking about like different concepts and stuff, like, you know, the things that you're answering are surprising me because I wouldn't have thought that way. But having that knowledge that you're sharing in the sense of what your experiences are or what your perspective is like really refreshing, because it's like, damn, I'm realizing like maybe I'm not aware of certain things, you know, like you're saying, like the relationships you have with, you know, your clients, in the sense of, you know, how much impact you could have on them, or just kind of like, you know, you talk about psychology and how, you know, I do see that in my career where I talk to people and I can see that it could be like counseling, but I maybe not, I don't like single it out in a way where I've been that aware of it as like right now that you're talking about it. So I think that's great, because that's kind of why I want to do this. You know, I like talking to people and I like getting perspective, but more importantly, like whoever's watching or listening to this, like they're also getting the perspective, you know? And that's the funny thing is, like, to do something like this, we're just sitting down talking, not thinking about it, but we're going to put it on the internet, and like, you know, people are going to be able to listen to it. And the concept of just sitting down and listening to someone, you know, talk, it's kind of a weird concept, you know, that's now pretty amazing. But do you find that you try to seek out that same type of like knowledge that we're putting out? Like, do you ever listen to podcasts, or do you do anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I listen to a lot of podcasts and lots of, you know, audiobooks, and lots of interviews with different people, not just tattooers, and, you know, from different fields, just getting that, what you said, different perspective on life, because that's what it really is. It's life. It's very refreshing. Good,
man. We talked about some dark stuff. You're not dark, but we talked about some more serious stuff. On a lighter note, like, where do you see your career going now?
It, you know, feels like right now, maybe you know, like 10-year of tattooing, maybe a little bit of an adjustment of the direction where I'm going to, where it's not just producing work and tattooing what it felt like it was before, to where somewhere where I could be a little bit more helpful and beneficial, what you said, to people and to the community, first through, you know, word. Hopefully I can get it out there. I can get it out of me, to start, you know, spreading the information, and maybe asking good questions, and helping people ask themselves good questions, help them think. And so besides just part of it, tattooing, maybe doing that, you know, maybe what I've mentioned, getting back to people,
more interactions,
and more communications and more feedback.
So speaking about, you know, people and communication, you know, there's people that I have, in a sense, molded my work around from the beginning, and people that I've been lucky enough to like be exposed to, like Bob Tyrell and Fred Flores and Alex Garcia, the guy that I apprenticed under. Those interactions, you know, like, are always going to live with me, and you know, being able to text people that I used to look up at magazines and like, you know, shoot the shit with them. It's pretty crazy, you know. I think one of the highlights, I think I mentioned this in the last time of my career, was, you know, like Tattoo Energy and Tattoo Life magazine. Are you familiar with those? One of the dopest moments in my life was when I was a client told me that they found me through the magazine, and I was like, I didn't even know it was like on the magazine. Like, so they told me what issue it was, and I went and I got it. And when I flipped to the page, I was on the same page as like Bob Tyrell, Stefan Alcantara, like right next to them, on like on the same sheet. And I was just like tripping out about that. Is there any artist, and if you can name who they are, is there any artists that have done that for you where you've just kind of like looked up to them, but they've also kind of molded your style?
Yeah, absolutely. There's I think there's quite a few artists through my career who I've been looking up to, and who's now build helped me build, my career and my art and my tattooing. And so starting, from the beginning to the end, it would be like people like Bob Tyrell, Carlos Torres, Josh Duffy, and later on I think the Liz joined with some of the Russian tattooers,
Yep.
Alex Sorsa, Dmitry Troshin, like me adapting like the style of tattooing with a liner, so to say. So those were probably some of the, like most obvious ones, and it feels like there are a lot more others and other people who I worked with who helped me shape, the way I am. And it was crazy. It was crazy to meet some of those people in real life, thinking that they were, this just celebrities. Like, meeting Carlos was pretty crazy. I was really excited. And, the fact that I had a chance to work with him was very humbling and very exciting experience for sure. I could never imagine something like that would happen for, a Russian dude who, grew up in a little town in Russia and then in Dayton, Ohio, coming and doing this here in California. It was real dope.
So like the example that I gave you with like the being in the magazine with Bob Tyrell, I'd say out of everyone out there, Bob's probably been my biggest idol, like from the beginning of this. That was an experience that's singular to that, person. Did you have an experience with any of those that was like pretty monumental in your career where you just were in awe of the situation you were in?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think working with Carlos, working with Sergio Sanchez and, Alan Padilla, that, at the Raven Wolves with that experience, like for...
How did you get hired there? Like, what was the moment? Because I'm sure that was probably...
It was a crazy move. I just came to California. My mom traveled from Russia, so we took a vacation to come to California, and I just popped in a Timeline Gallery to chat with Carlos and just seeing everybody who's working there, and we start talking, and the conversation went to that he's opening a shop and that he has this painting that he wants to tattoo, and he offered to tattoo it on my back, which was another really crazy moment because I could never believe I would could get in contact with somebody like him, and he just offered to tattoo me on the next cycle. And that's kind of how I came to get to know him, and by coming here and doing guest spots and getting my back tattoo, and deciding to make a move to California. That was how I ended up there.
What was the moment that you were told, like, do you want to work here, or like?
Well, it was more of a moment me coming to Carlos and say, "Hey, Carlos, I want to work here. How do I do this?" Yeah. And so, thankfully he was cool enough, to hire me. Yeah. And we had a conversation. I was really persistent, me wanting to work there. I saw everything. I was like, well, this is the spot where everybody want to be. And so it was just like that. And it was 5 years ago, when I came here and and guest spotted there.
Would you say that was probably one of the high points of your career
so
far?
Yeah. That, and starting tattoo, obviously.
Yeah.
That was one of the highest moments for sure. Yeah. Very good moments. Like those were really good collaborations. And it was very beneficial relationships for at least for me, hopefully for both of us.
And then some of the artists that you mentioned with Carlos and with Josh and with them, you got tattooed by most of them, or?
So I've got tattooed by Carlos. He did a piece on my back. Well, actually, it's still in progress. I should probably finish this. It's just really painful. Yeah. And Alex Sorsa tattooing my leg. Also need to get back to that. Both projects.
I feel like tattooers are the worst at finishing projects.
Yeah, but I will do it. I know I gotta finish this. Those two pieces for sure has to be finished. So I still have a few spots left, just like on my sides and on my legs, really not that many. And I was thinking, like hopefully maybe getting, my ribs done by Judge Duffy, but it just looks like such a painful process.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, I don't know.
He's a really nice guy. I
Yeah.
haven't talked to him in a while, but
Yeah.
I stopped by and I guess spotted one.
Oh, cool.
one
Yeah.
time, but
Yeah.
yeah, he's awesome. I should reach out to him.
Yeah.
Cool. We'll start wrapping this up, but I have a couple like final questions
Yeah,
that like I want to ask everyone. So we talked about like not having not having regrets. Like you have regrets, but but learning along the way with everything that you have. And 10 years is a long time in the industry. Like I don't think we realize it. When I first started, I asked my mentor Alex at the time how long he had been tattooing, and he said 8 years, and I thought that was like the longest ever. I was like, whoa, like you've been doing this all your life.
Yeah.
And now I'm 12 years in, and I'm like, I don't think we realize it. But we talked about earlier being in a place where we're transitioning now between different generations of tattooers, and we are the OGs.
Yeah.
Like we really are. Like I mean, I'm not saying we're the oldest, but we are an older generation.
For sure. Have something to share, definitely.
Yeah. Being that generation and having these people come in, if you can give 3 pieces of advice that you've accumulated throughout your career that you would give to someone that's just now starting in the industry, no matter how they're starting, but like people that are getting into the industry either through apprenticeship or through learning on their own or whatever the situation is, what are 3 pieces of advice that you think you would wish someone gave you when you first started?
Well, I'm probably gonna mention a few that I've been given to, and like one of the biggest pieces of advice were to listen more and speak less. It's so simple, but at the same time, it's not, because hearing and listening is 2 different things, and so learning how to listen is a very valuable skill in life in general, and you can learn a lot from that.
Yeah.
And so that would be one, and ask quality questions is another one, because the quality of your career will depend on quality of ask questions. And third one, if I got to choose, it probably would be an advice to stay humble. Stay humble and hungry, and don't get your head blown up, because that is one of the things that happen to a lot of tattooers when they start getting any good, especially in the beginning of their career. And I definitely experienced that, and I'm glad I had people who humbled me at the time, and helped me not to get too carried away with myself and with my work and whatnot.
Awesome. So I told you, I'm going to try to get Ben Ochoa on here. We talked about that. Franco, I know he said that he would be up for it. I just got to find time for that. And talk to Vito about doing it too.
That's cool.
Who would you would like to hear of on a podcast like this?
Interesting. It is a hard question, because there are so many people I would like to hear speaking.
But if you can give me like 2 or 3 people that you think would be something you would want to listen to besides the ones I already named.
Yeah. So, from a standpoint of, do they have to be alive?
They do. Because I like to be able to ask them.
So it'll be really interesting to hear Eric Marcinez, just because it seems like, you see his work, and I'd like to hear more about like his story and whatnot.
Yeah.
I would really like to hear from, hearing from Judge Duffy would be actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that'd be really rad, actually.
That will be awesome to have Carlos on the podcast. That's probably like, those 3.
Amazing
somebody,
artists.
Somebody who who could be on your podcast and who can give you insight, and maybe call me off guard. Maybe I'll think about something and write it down later. Hey, actually, this guy would be really cool to have on your podcast.
Well, since you mentioned it earlier, if they weren't around, who would you?
I'd probably like to hear Norm. Yeah,
that would be.
He seemed very interesting person, and that would be cool.
Yeah, he was a very interesting person.
Yeah.
For the little exposure I got to be around
Yeah.
him, like in his, like that very, very interesting, hardworking, amazing person. Yeah.
I've met him briefly, but not get a chance to know him. But from the stories I heard, it was just, you know, and different kind of man, you know, different kind of artist. So
that's a really accurate way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah. I mean, his shop was a labor of love. Like he
Yeah.
sustained that shop.
Yeah.
Like it was like his space.
Yeah.
I was really blessed to be able to have that experience.
Yeah.
Because it's like I've never seen. I mean, I've seen it, but it's rare that you see people that create literally every aspect of their life revolves around art. Like whether it's graffiti or tattooing or whatever he was doing, like every aspect of his life revolved around, you know, pretty much art. So that was cool to see. Yeah, that's good. I'm trying to think if I have anything else. Do you have any questions for me since we were about to wrap this up?
Well, you know, so I do actually. Do you listen or read books? You into book reading of anything of any kind, or movies?
Yeah, movies are great.
Yeah.
I just need something visual because I get attention problems, ADHD.
So, if you had a recommendation for me to read any book or listen or watch any of the movies, do you have anything that you just be? This is the one that I recommend to everybody.
Yeah, that's actually a good question. It would have to be a movie because I don't read. You know, and there's so many amazing books people tell me to get, and I'll even buy them or get, and I just won't ever read them. I'm a sucker for feel-good movies. And there's one movie that I watch a lot, and I think a lot of it, you know, I relate to in a lot of different ways. It's not even like an amazing movie, but it's a good movie. But there's a movie called The Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
You know,
I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
You know, I have not, but I think I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's got Ben Stiller in it.
Yeah.
So when I was in school, I had really bad problems paying attention, like really bad problems. And the reason was I would constantly daydream.
Yeah.
Like I was just always looking around and like I'd stare off and just go into this movie in my head and just daydream. And that made it really hard in school to like focus. And now I know, you know, ADHD and things like that, you know, now I've learned ways to work around it. But in the movie, he does that a lot. And he lives like a really humble, modest lifestyle, like doesn't have a lot, doesn't, you know, believe that he could have a lot or do a lot, you know, it's just kind of very mild temperament. But in the movie, he's put into situations where he has to make choices. Yeah. And it all starts with making like the one choice. And when he makes that one choice, like the rest just follows. Wow. And then at some point, he stops daydreaming because he's living the things that he created. Yeah. So it's just a feel-good movie. But I say that that's a movie that I watch and it just gets me like, it's visually, cinematically, it's actually a really good movie. Yeah.
Helped you work with your ADHD?
No, wait, say
oh, like it sounds like the movie maybe helped you.
No, it gave me more of an acknowledgement of my, it was not of my ADHD, but it gave me more of an acknowledgement of the progress, that I've made in going from someone, because I don't daydream anymore. Like, I mean, like,
it's important, huh? Knowledge.
Now it's like I'm living everything that would be a daydream. Like I'm jumping out of planes. I'm like I'm surfing. I'm you know, like I mean climbing. I don't even remember all this stuff that I just do so much.
You're doing line dancing?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I'm a pilot, so I'll go flying sometimes. So it's like I guess that's kind of the point that I'm trying to say. Is like it's a good movie because it made me realize like that I'm kind of, you know, like living through that movie in a way where it's like I can relate to it a lot, you know, where it's like you didn't have a lot going for yourself or you didn't think you could do much, so you just daydreamed all those things. And then once you give yourself that belief or that chance and you take that leap, you know, seeing what you could become, it's just like, it's a beautiful thing. So I think for me, that'd be a movie. It's a good feel-good movie. And it's like it's not long, so
I'm definitely watching it now.
It's a good movie.
Good.
But I would say that's a good question. Maybe I should start asking people the same thing. What about you? Is there anything?
So for me right now it would be a book. You know, it's called Never Split the Difference, by Chris Voss. It's a book about communication, and it's like one book that helped me improve the quality of all my relationships and everybody I come in contact with, and book that helped me realize the importance of listening another side, rather than focusing, what's going on in your own head. And
Yeah.
that was just something that helped me in the last few years with life in general.
Got it. I'll get that. Is it audiobook
Yeah,
too? You probably have audiobook.
it's audiobook too. It's super fun to listen. It's like a blockbuster. The guy who wrote it, he's like ex-FBI agent. He was talking with terrorists and negotiating all kind of deals, and the whole thing is just like really cool listen or read.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give it a read.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on, man. I'll get some photos of your tattoos or something before you leave, because I'd love to be able to like share those with people and what you got. No, I appreciate you having this conversation with me. I hope it was comfortable and like
absolutely. Yeah, it was very cool experience.
But yeah, and to anyone that's still listening to this, like I hope you guys appreciate Daniil's time, just because he drove all the way down just to come and do this with me, and he's gonna hang out. And I think we're very fortunate to be in an industry where we're open enough that we can have these conversations and not feel threatened or isolated like it used to be.
Exactly. So. It's always good to talk about things.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome, brother.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Yeah.
All right, guys. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you.